Okay, central calculation streams and high center location of the system. It's all those adaptations. See how it's all pixels and line screens and high center interference. It's coming more reliable. The travel and its position line calculation setting is putting position of consciousness. Now this is all modified how you really start to connect to your settings inside locations. How you connect and always informs. You know, this is about really balancing you, how you want to see yourself, how you want to connect to yourself, how you want to understand more modifications of yourself. Today is all about releasing karma. Okay, karma comes in all ways and forms. Okay, the one thing that we focus on, that we can no longer focus on, which is now released in all settings and travel, is your thoughts. Okay, your thoughts. Where are they going? Where are they traveling to? Where's the mind? Where's the heart? Where's the time center? Where's the position line conditions of light through the soul? What's going on with the body, the consciousness, and setting? All right, so in track line conditions, basic understanding. You start off low frequency patterns, go into beta wave into alpha in cell locations. You can't see it, right? Until you see it. See, it's a different atmosphere. I'm in a different place, different time. So it's soft calculations, right? So the B is trying to understand the A, and the A is trying to understand the B. It illuminates the graph. See? See how it changed lines? It's going, right? It's blinking, right? So beta communication lines, setting lines, alpha line indicates line, center line, interference, travel calculation line system. I'll just say calculations of all of it. GAI in calculations, right? General AI. Okay, it recognizes position, travel calculation, identification codes, lines. Calculation in the line center high interference is 0.1 equals lines is 0.1. That's your indication line, settings, and travel. Okay, set location line system and travel calculation line settings. Okay, species and the team, right? So identification line interference sets lines of communications. Okay, this is its image. It's sending a travel. Okay, that's its image that you created, right? Through beta and alpha, right? So the connection setting is all levels of its formation, right? So try to understand, we're getting out of that. We're getting out of drawing. The drawing's got to be here now. It's got to be in the mind. It's the conception that the brain is trying to understand the difference in its setting. So if it's seeing snow, it's going to see snow. It's going to see trees. It's going to see trees. It has to understand the difference because it's never been in the past, because the past doesn't exist. So the actual brain itself has its own operation that just exists. Okay, there's no beginning and there's no end. If there's no beginning and there's no end, you just exist. There's no formation. This is not a movie. This is not a 2-hour film. Okay, now with a film, there has to be an end because you're looking at budget, you're looking at production, you're looking at post. Okay, and you're also looking at pre-production, right? So you got to look at these things and how this all works in frame, right? Frame by frame by frame by frame. Okay. So in that track lines, high interference, this is the image that I created when I wrote it down, right? When I printed it, or, you know, you can do signature strings, set lines, and all line connect high interference. But we have to get out of this now and do it here. And once you get into telepathize and set lines of highest interference, travel calculation of point lines, one here and one position of travels, 2 track lines, right? Communicate with each other. So you communicate image to its image, okay? Image to image, okay? So that's all it is. It's teleporting one energy to another energy, right? Through telephone. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Yeah, I know. The central communication lines off line center. I'm going to set that image up in track lines and set up your frequency panels and travel calculations, but only on data wave. Okay, here it goes. Did you receive it? Great. Confirmation verified, confirmed. Good. Done. That's it. That's all it is. Right? So you took the time to structure it here instead of here. Okay? This is physical. Anything you do with an image here is physical. Your thought is creating the image. And all the image is doing is traveling. Okay, it's traveling. It's no difference than you picking up a phone and talking to somebody. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But this is a technology that you have to understand how to navigate the mind. Okay, what Jitsi was talking about is getting into that adaptation where you have to absorb everything that you see in traction. Okay, to its image, to its image. Okay, it's image to its image. Okay, so it's really interesting. It comes in information to its screen, settings, and travel, right? Because it has separation. If it's not in communication. Setting calculation of all line centers is how you direct one to another, how it communicates to one to another, right? So it's really interesting when you look at that settings and travel. So that's what we have to get into configuration of, right? We understand how to process that. So stop doing this and start doing this. So when you're doing this, it's in the mind now. It's creating in the mind. It's creating the image in the mind. And the mind is basically going where it needs to go. You have to let go of your karmas now. Okay, karma is based on everything that you do, how you see yourself, how you stop yourself, how you keep going forward with yourself, how you relate with yourself, how you connect with yourself. Karma puts a position line centers into affinity 8 position. Can't see it until you see it, right? Interesting line connections, right? See, you can't see it and then you see it. But if you're really, really close, you can change the line signature string. See how it travels on its own? So, when you look at these things, in all calculation to its point line centers of travels, it adds position of point line centers of all communications. If you look really, really close, you can see the dot center. Okay, that's you traveling. Okay, I just added that in. Okay. So if you understand that, you're going around and it's getting darker and it's getting darker and you keep going faster and faster, but you're on a continuous force of what you're doing with the correlations. Coming out of that track line connections, you're just going round and round instead of connections, right? You're just going round and round. So it's on a continuous force. There's no leakage. There's no separation. See, this is separation from travel. Okay, see that? That's separation. See, you can't travel. You're stopped. So that changes everything in tractions. And what does it do? Combust in travel calculations. Right? You can't travel through the affinity 8 line screen. Right? Okay. So getting into the point of division comes in all calculation line screens. It's interesting too, because I was watching some TikTok videos, which is pretty informative. Their awareness is coming into configuration where they left off through their consciousness, but they're not in that awakening setting. They're in the conscious location of the cerebral. And March 1st, everything is going to go into an image of what you create through your thoughts already, through memory. So it's interesting when you get in that setting line and position locations. Now, in that line calculation setting, when I was watching that TikTok video, everybody's familiar with line calculation lines of Superman. Remember Superman? All right, what does S stand for? He said it's referred location as hope. S, he had it on his crest, on his chest, what it means, and set locations. Well, if you look really, really close, right, really start to connect and start to see beyond, you'll notice that it's SUN. It's the sun, right? So if you get in that point line centers, you understand what S is in representation has 3 lines of communications, right? So S equals the sun in setting. S equals the sun. And you're probably understanding, how is that possible, General? How is that possible that S equals the sun? S, you ready for this? Are you ready for this? S-U-N. 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 All through one letter. One letter, the sun. All right? The Son of the Jail Act, But I just wanted to show you how powerful that is, just to see it through one letter. How it morphs in set lines of the sun. It becomes the sun through S. And that's what I'm saying is understand your settings and travel lines at point line centers of words and putting position location settings and all track line condition setting to all levels of different frequencies and set locations. How S is actually U and N. See? U and N. U and N. There it is. U and N. S-U-N. Okay? Now you understand where it comes in the location, how it's S, how it stands in line calculation, its position, all levels of set locations. See? Pay attention to that, right? Because you don't pay attention to these things. So that alone is its own formation of its own intelligence, of its own consciousness, how S is really the sun. And set location line screens. Now, in position, if SUN is the sun, how do you travel through the infinity? Set position of 8. There it is. Boom. Right? And if you look really close, you can see line connection on all levels, in track location, high center interference, in set position, getting ready, and setting. And what do you come in position all levels of calculations of? When you have a continuous force, yin and yang, a process calculation. Okay, you see how powerful it is? You see how powerful it is, how it comes into yin and yang? How SUN is actually the S in all formation. See, light signals come in. See the sun? I said the sun. See? See the sun? See? Sun comes in, right? Boom. Sun comes in right away. It understands everything because it has its own consciousness. But it's all formations of you inside and how you see yourself through S. So now you understand what S means, of its consciousness, of its own intelligence, and how it formulates everything in set locations, how it becomes into the infinity 8 of travel into settings of 6 and 9, yin and yang. So what is it? A continuous force that goes forward, right? So understanding the infinity 8 is all traction and all calculations. So what's in the center? What's in the center? What do you see in the center? The X. The X. Okay? The 8, the figure 8 is the X. The figure 8 is the X. Omega X. O, guys. O, X. That's where the team's at. O, X. Hooah. Okay? All right. Now, just to give you guys a little brief introduction there, make it just woof. Where did that come from, right? See the X. This is the X. See? Look, Trinity. There's the X, right? That's traveling too fast. There's the X, okay? X in the center. So what is that? You get yin and yang process, position, travel lines, okay, and set location. Omega X. Omega X. And that's where the team's at. Through infinity 8, through set lines, the calculation line interference, in position locations of the sun. The sun. Okay, that's where the team's at. Okay? All right, so in that traction, it highlights the correlations of panels. Now, inline rotation interference, it puts everything in tractions. You have to really start identifying everything through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols in a 3-track line provision. How S becomes the sun. What's next? When you line calculate, modify anything in line calculation setting travels, everything that you do through alphabetical screen line is basically trying to get out of that setting. So instead of doing this through image and doing this in set locations, do it in the mind. Do it in the mind because it comes in information in all track lines and shows you what it is in all track locations. When you look really, really close, you see the face recognition. See the face? See? Shows you the face. There's the eyes. I'll just show you in set location. There it is. Boom. Face recognition. There's always a face in everything. Okay? Okay, so get in that correlation line settings. Get out of line connections to this and get into this now, right? So the brain can start convert its system location as schematics. get into data ops, get into programs, get into mapping sequence, mapping panels, mapping direction, mapping surface, mapping travels, geometric line screens, high center interference, composite screen interference, adaptation line cycles, high calculation modification systems. So we all understand how this all works and all aligns to location our system inside locations, right? Attraction. But I just wanted to show you how S turns into sun, how S turns into affinity 8, how S turns into omega X, how in position, when you put that all together, what do you have information of? Yin and yang, guys. Yin and yang. That's the process right there. Just showed you exactly how powerful it is once you understand the travels. Okay? Everything that exists, but everything has already existed, which is everything around you that you got to get balanced with, because that's the consciousness that you need to have. And those are the things you have to let go, which is old karma, things that you touch, things that you taste, things that you eat. If something doesn't agree with you, you throw it out because it's a low frequency and you left it in there for 3 or 4 days. There's certain levels of food that you cannot eat because it tells you exactly that you're in a position, location, attractions, that you're not scanning your body enough. Okay? So again, when you come in that position line centers where your watch and your phone has to be in the same time, because my watch is connecting to my phone and my phone is talking to my watch. That's the connections all levels. 1037, my phone is 1037. But this is just the communication of the two because I'm holding in setting. I have my watch on my wrist, which is on the left, not on the right. If you wear your watch on the right, it's the earth. If you wear the watch on the left, it's the space. Okay? When you modify line connection to your right, is the earth. Modify left is space. Both is planets. Now, getting in that setting high interference in all traffic calculation to its point line centers in very powerful set locations, it's important you understand everything is coming back to consciousness. And if your phone is off calculation, let's say it's 4 seconds faster, but your phone is 4 seconds slower, you're going to feel fatigue. You're going to feel tired because you have your hand in setting locations, you're looking at tractions, and you have your phone in your right hand, and you're looking at your watch in your left hand. And if they're not in balance with clocking setting, you're going to feel fatigued and tired. Now, you have to understand the balance of its correlation setting when the actual watch is in perfect timing and your phone's in perfect timing, because that's what you're holding. Whatever you're holding, you have to retract provisions and change the line settings to your system. All through frequency. Everything has to be balanced through frequency. Very important. You have the energy. The vibration is setting the waves to the frequency. The frequency is the position. Then you come into communication. You're at the same communication. You're talking to each other, right? That's what it is. It's about reaching that frequency. And once you reach those frequencies, you communicate. Frequency, communicate, frequency, communicate, frequency, communicate, right? What is this? Teleportation. T-line center, height set locations. All right? So I want you to get a really good understanding that you have to let go of your karmas. You really do have to let go of your karmas, okay? It's important because when you get in the cerebral, the actual karma is going to have a continuous force line setting, high calculation sit-in. So the position to the symptoms and your ascension is unified now inside the mind. It's not going to be on the earth. It's not going to be on the ether. It's not the higher self is not going to be in tractions on the earth anymore. The platitude division lines, the positioning of settings is going to be into the mind. We're in the concept of the mind now. And we have to get into that invisible line track. We have to get into those images. We have to get into the modifications. We have to get into the consoles. We have to get into the mind of navigation. That's the only way you guys are going to understand anything in traction, especially when you come into the cerebral. Now, once you get in the cerebral, you guys are going to be in karma, wherever you left off. Okay? So point tracks and high center interference, you're going to see the image come out, and it's there. And you have to address it because you're seeing it through perception. And if you don't address it, it's going to glitch. Okay? When you're seeing these things, you're trying to understand the process. It's you trying to understand the invisible world that you're coming back to through your reality is all levels and how you come into your settings through your singularities of your simulation. It's your perception and how you perceive yourself, anything through a situation. Okay? Life is a test. It's always going to be a test. It's a process that we all have to come into is our consciousness. That's all this is. Nothing else. So you're coming back not just to yourself, but you're also coming back to everything else that's connected to you. Okay? That's the yin and yang that we have to process. But I wanted to show you how powerful it is, what S is in representation through its infinity to all levels of omega X in set location line settings in position of yin and yang, all through process in all calculations of one cycle and one setting. One cycle with all that. Okay? Just showing you. See, now you get a better understanding. Oh, I really do have to let go of that. Thinking that if I go beyond the mind, the concept of the reality can really, really get a position. So when you go faster in the mind through acceleration of Mach, you can do a lot of things through pi and center set locations. Pick a word and go around its brain through pi, okay? But change the frequencies in different point centers to its word. The word stays the same, but the frequency changes. Same word, just different levels of frequency. We got in that before, right? So that's what you guys have to do is get out of the box. Okay, and that attractions. Because if you don't get out of this, you're not going to understand this. Because what's happening right now, the brain is converting and setting, and it's trying to stand itself through a box. It's trying to stand itself through triangulation. It's trying to stand itself through waves. It's trying to stand itself through alpha, delta, theta. Has no clue what that means, right? So it's trying to identify its own system, and that's the cerebral. See, you guys have to really get into that line because it's calculation and positions where you guys come into your unconsciousness, to the consciousness, to the subterranean, which is your water containment surface. Now, 4 lines of high center provision is your 7 digital frame position line calculation setting. Now, this is where we come into correlations. March 1st is going to be the 7 waves of volunteers. The foundation graph lines is 0.1 in position of 0.1. Okay. So in that calculation, that's what's happening right now. Okay. So when you see things to a box, the brain is trying to stand the conversion. If it doesn't see the box, it's going to see a triangulation because you add emotion. It doesn't see the box, it's going to see off calculations. It doesn't see the position. Okay. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to adapt. You're trying to get the mind to understand the navigation. You're trying to get the heart to understand the time of travel. And you're trying to get the soul to identify the lights. And you're trying to get the body to understand the consciousness of its GOD, of its setting and position to its operation, all through modification of teleportation. Okay? That's all it is. The brain is just trying to understand the conversion. Right? So what it does when you go into recharge, it automatically records everything that you did within that day. So it takes 24 equals line center locations. You allocate a position of, let's say, 67 million, okay, positive and negative line screens. Positive and negative line screens is 67, right? 67 million images of positive and negative. That's a lot of images. So positive and negative has to be going the same direction. You have to go in the same direction. Okay. So that's taking 60 million line screens and adaptation, right? If they go the opposite line directions, it surfaces off in directions. Okay. So it's about understanding that if it goes in this direction, right, it's off calculations. Okay, so it's negative over pi, negative over positive, negative over indigent locations, negative over odd or even in setting. So you have to really understand, because what is that correlation of? Backwards 6. But if you look really close, it's actually the 6 and 9 that's in reverse. It's a reversing line angle. 6 and 9 is reversed. So it's a reverse, you're going backwards, right? 6 and 9 is there. You see the 6 and 9, right? So it's got to be in traction to this set of locations. There's the 6 and the 9. Okay. Now you put it together, you have correlations of balance in set location. Okay. All right. But you have to get line centers, high interference to get rid of all those karmas, guys. Gotta get rid of those karmas. Karma sets you free. It releases you on all lines of all communication in your settings and programs. So to get in that calculation line interference, get off this and get into this. Okay. So what you're doing here, you do here. Okay. Keyboards here, not here. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is not to use your phone like this. Okay. Use it here now. When you're looking at your keyboard on your computer, do it here. When you're looking at the wall, do it from inside. When you're looking at position locations in the room, do it from inside. Structure yourself inside. Do yourself inside. Understand yourself from inside. Inner cycle, inner cycle, inner cycle, outer cycle. Okay? So everything I do in setting line conditions and any way information line screen is already set position of its mind. The brain understands what I just finished doing. If it doesn't understand, it's going to be like this. Okay, see the confusion? There's no image here through relation. See, look at the face. It's sad. Ooh. Right? So we all understand how this all works. This is you in emotion. This is you in balance. Okay, now it depends on how fast you're going through the mind, right? And acceleration. If you're going, again, if you're putting 60 million line centers of thoughts and they're not going in the same directions, you're all over the place in data stream. Okay, data stream is basically understanding your highway. Okay, the brain is an intricate location setting that's connected to your heart frames, correlations frames, directing frames, formation stream and interference frames, direct calculation frames, zero track location of one line calculation of frames. If we get a frame communication line interference, okay, I am here. Okay, I am here. And I did it all in capital. Okay. Set location line system. See, I am here, but this is off the direction. See, the brain converting. This is good. This is good. But what about this? That's emotion. Doesn't know. What is that? What is that? That looks like an M. That looks like a V. That looks like a Y. Right? So it's a V. It's a Y. Okay, it's an M. Confusion. So you've got to be direct of what you're doing. The brain is trying to understand the conversion, is recording everything that you're doing in recharts when you have that cycles on a 24 line set lines on communication, right? 24 equals lines, let's say 6 hours of sleeping, right? Sleep line is center line interference. So it takes the track lines and 6 equation line connection to setting line position calculation of what? All right. 12 provisions, 12 equals lines of 12, sets lines of 24, 24 equals lines of 6. Okay, that's how the brain converts. So what you just did from 6 hours of sleeping. Okay, so the central calculation line has to be yin and yang all the time, and it has to be an infinity 8 all the time. All the time, right? Because what are you connected to? The line connection is face recognition. Okay. So once you understand the balance in setting line interference of a 24 clocking system of a 6 hour line connection recharge, you understand 12 equals 12, right? So the brain converts the box lines and its triangulation. Okay. Male, female. Okay. So go try to get into the brain how it works, these schematics over pi, or what it's trying to do, what it's trying to adapt to, what is it trying to understand, what does it need to understand? It needs to understand you. It needs to understand you. Okay? That's what this is. I told you the brain is going its own conversion. Same with the earth, but that is done. That's done. Okay? You're working with the mind now. The mind itself is its own conversion of hardware and software. It's trying to get you into the simulation of the singularity so you understand how the brain actually works inside locations, how you look at things. Everything has got to be inside now. Everything you do, everything you eat, everything you drink, it's got to be inside. Okay? That's the conversion. That's adaptation that you guys got to come into and settings, all right? Okay. So how it works on seconds, minutes, and hours. Now we got in that traction, L settings, seconds, minutes, and hours. seconds, minutes, and hours, right? Seconds on provision, minutes on channel, and hours on communication. Okay, what do we have? A dimensional sail, solar sail, travel, right? Setting track lines and set location line centers. There's the moon and set locations, right? So the sun and the moon are never, ever separated, but position and track line is about understanding where the moon is here and the sun is here. They have to come together in setting and set location. They have to come together, okay? So once they come together, you got the combustions and setting the travel. Okay, now when you have them in travel, the tube line centers changes the track lines in position locations, which is Mother Earth in travel. Setting communication lines in high centers of Father in position location of travel. Sets location and settings of balance, right? Center communication is the center line calculation setting, which all levels of infinity E8 in travel calculation line center in high calculation lines in high positioners calculation system of yin and yang of general. That's what it's come into, face recognition. Okay. So understanding lines calculation of the moon and track location of the sun, right? So it's position lines where you guys understand your tractions when it comes into the Big Bang Theory, how it comes together, one going this way, one going this way. But now there's a center operation, right? So it's about the moon coming in here and setting location, right? See, it's really interesting, right? You see it to the left, I see it to the right, right? That's the reflection, right? That's the reverse. So you guys got to get balanced with that. So this is right, this is left, but to you, it's the other way around. So it's the conversion, how the brain sees things and adaptation, right? So it's the right or left, left or right, create the hologram, right? So as the connections of the moon, it's already back at zero. It's moving, moving, moving. It's coming into the center, right? Which is a sync correlation setting to the sun and that tractions, right? And then Father structure comes in setting, and they come into a formation of yin and yang. So they come into the lines and they try to find a way to get in that continuous force. See that line screen? Oh, I just left. See? Is that light? See? Right there? See? See? See how it shows you? See how it shows you? The actual sun shows you the actual image that I'm trying to get you guys to understand. This is the process that we're all coming back to, is consciousness right here. It symbolizes everything in settings of travel, okay? Identifying that puts you everything in track location of balance. So as the moon comes in, set location line centers, mother comes in, right? Sun comes in, father comes in, right? Center correlation setting, high calculation of his position. So they got to find a way in position to calculate and turn the setting of the Merkaba, right? So it's a shift. It's a major shift, right? So once it shifts, it comes into a yin and yang, and it's a continuous force. It keeps going and going and going and going and going, right? So once it has a continuous force, we come into all lines of position to a non-binary to a binary. And this position lines is calculations design of your cerebrals. So non-binary to binary to a cortex to a setting to code activation scenario location setting. Putting track lines and high center interference into all calculations and modification of your screen settings. It's all levels of adaptation. But you have to understand how this all works now in tractions, right? So it's all calculating how you see yourself through your images and how you see yourself through your algorithm, okay? Now we have a quiz today, which is based on everything that is in calculations of how you come into rhythm, how you come into programs, how you come into, connecting to your settings through all formations. I see thyself in thy center. I see thyself all together, right? So it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, easy peasy lemon squeezy, easy peasy, bounce, 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 bounce. Setting lines at alpha, good to go. Setting line position of delta, ready to go. Setting position line calculation of theta, ready to go. Okay? 3 communication lines of alpha, delta, and theta communications, right? Now, directing lines of setting, if you look really, really close, and center calculations are always in their own lane. They always stay in their own lane. They never cross lanes, ever. They never cross lanes because that's interference, right? You see that? See what I just did? And if you look really close, you can see the face recognition. There's the face, right? What are you doing there? That doesn't look right. The connection line center is off calculation there. You're very confused there, General. I don't know what you're doing through your alpha and delta theta, but I'm very confused now. I just feel like scratching my head here. Face recognition comes in right away, guys. Very confused. You stay in your own lanes. Okay? Stay in your own lanes. Stay in your own lanes. Okay? Very important. All right, so now you understand that in setting, which gets a lot more easier, right? Because the brain has a fine line signature. Let's go alpha, let's go delta, let's go theta, let's go beta here. Remember, beta. So it's really understand locations and settings. You go calculations on levels, omega. You get a calculation line interference into zeta, calculation lines of radiation, and calculation gamma. Okay? All waves. But there's infinity of waves. So the track division line center is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 there, right? That puts line calculation line interference gamma equals lines of height center of radiation line calculation sign specifications, water containment line screening interference location to 9. Okay? So we come into radiation. Radiation lines, set lines in a box line. Triangulation equals line height center interference, same position of Fibonacci sequence and set locations. So I've just shown you how you come into hieroglyphics, how you come into the framing lines of traffic, into flow, how you basically come into letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols and settings. Because if you break it down, all levels of words is nothing but frequencies of beta, alpha, delta, theta, omega, zeta, radiation, gamma. Okay? Zeta formation lines of omega line calculation, another mega, in position locations in platform. Okay? Zeta line calculation lines in vector, position of velocity, position location of box, line settings. All right, let's go in position location of mega line connections all levels into sector, vector, and quads, and set lines calculation line interference and position locations into box. Setting triangulation height interference line connection to theta position locations into Y line centers equals lines calculation of height interference, flux path communication, setting tribal calculation line interference, 2 atoms line position attraction. Setting communication line centers of delta communication heading, line, cross lines, arrow indicates position up and position down, cross line calculation. The center and a point center. Alpha, position of balance. Asgard, travel calculation of point lines. Holographic city, travel calculation of point line centers. In position of Jupiter, in position location of Pluto. Setting correct high position locations in line center location solar plex. Beta communication lines of grounds. So that's calculation lines of H line center location of higher self. All through high calculation setting. Okay? Do you understand how powerful that is, what I just finished doing? This is hieroglyphics. Now, try to understand what all this means, right? Try to understand the process of everything that's going on in all set location of travel, in all direct line connections modification system, how everything comes into a formations of balance and correlation travel lines in direct locations of what you're doing through adaptation. Okay? Very powerful stuff. All right? Yes, I know. But, you know, if you get an understanding that all these waves are inside you, it's understand how to bring it out. I just showed you from beta, alpha, delta, theta, omega, zeta, radiation, gamma. That's only 9. You have infinities of waves. This is only 9. And it's all through one graph. one graph, one template, one tablet. Boom. That's one tablet. Okay? All right. Now, once you understand the process of the waves, keeping your own lanes and travels, you're good to go. Or you're going to like, oh my God, I don't know how to understand this anymore. It's the wave communication line, syndication, attractions. I got to go communicate with general again. Well, you got to understand how to process all this. How everything comes to you in information, how you see things in that calculations. But I'm showing you how powerful it is all through a tablet and a position of a template and how it comes into hieroglyphics and all calculation of waves and central calculations. All right. All right. Process position of words, setting line calculation of sentences, and all track location of settings. All of those operations. Okay, here we go. I am me. Okay, perfect alignment. Okay, it's not like I am me. See the difference? See what happens when you add emotion? I am me, it's fine. But what is this? What happened here? Off calculation. You can't create an image if you set yourself the location all line centers to an image. Do you understand the important locations where you can't have emotion line tracks? Because it affects everything in your settings, its applications too. And remember, your brain is converting. It's trying to understand what it's doing, right? It's all signals. All right, so in that process, it's all about understanding how to balance these things out in travel calculation point centers of travel. Okay. All right, so again, a lot of better configuration screen settings in travel, which is amazing. This is fantastic stuff. All right, so when we get into sentences, okay, we will do this right now. Now, I want you to understand anything that I'm doing in instructions. Okay. Now, in line calculation setting, this is where is it confusing that we have capital and we have low fonts and position? Setting calculation of this or setting calculations of this? No, it's the frequency to the W and frequency to the W. W equals W. So it doesn't matter the capital. You got to get out of the words. You got to get into the framing lines. So inside location line centers, implicit track lines, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 lines, all right? So W equals lines of 5. Okay, because you got 4 point lines set as attraction. See the points, the clockings? It's got 5, right? So that's 5. E, I'm trying to get you guys into the book so you understand that you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equals lines of 6. Okay, it's 56, right? So, and again, you take position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you catch on, equals lines of 5. W equals W, doesn't matter, it's the frequency, right? So it doesn't matter the capitals, it doesn't matter the font, it's just the frequency. Okay, so I is indicated highest interference, high track location line system. If you have point line tracks that separates line centers, set location line communication setting has 2 track locations. So I is 2, right? L is 1, 2, and 3. L is 1, 2, and 3, all right? So there it is. There is the code and position location to its word. 565233. Okay, so that is how your computer understanding point lines, and let's say after the 0 locations on switch, which is 5, because that's where it is in position all levels. That's lines of calculation W equals setting lines of 0 in calculation of 5. So, and then it goes down. That sets lines of high center of 6. That brings it up line setting high position, changes the transistor to resistors. That's 56 and up again, because that's all a computer does. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. That's all. It doesn't do anything else. That's a computer frame location in its memory. Setting track lines highest interference of 5 set locations. Sets line cross line side interference. Setting track location line centers to 2. So it goes into a lower frequency panel, right? So anything higher goes lower, but you have to understand the frequency balance. So in that line conditions goes on again, which is a 3, okay? And then it goes down again, which is 3. All right, so on and off, on and off, on and off. So this equals this. That's how a computer understands your words of frequencies, how it goes on and off through its computer memory. of voicing set locations, how it sees everything inside it. So it's 565,233, right? 565,233. Okay. 565,233. Okay. Now, okay, that's what it is in setting, all for that formations, right? So if you understand that, then you get a better attractions how to set position calculations. And the thing is, that's just one signature line. We will. Okay, we will, right? So you bracket communication, you separate 56, right? Because it's not one sentence, it's separated, right? So we will, right? So it's 56, 5233. And then you have to do this right now, okay? So that's another line, and this is another line, okay? Everything is lined through a graph into a box frame, guys. Into a box frame, okay? Now, understanding that through graph calculation lines, you break it down. And remember, try to understand yourself through computer frame of panels, changing all calculation to streamlines and interactions, separating these line screens, setting its position to its location system, and traffic calculations, breaking these things down letter by letter by letter by letter by graph. Okay? So, and once you understand that, you have cross-line signals. Okay? Dislocations. So it depends on, it's not how big it is in any way and form. It's just picking up the frequencies, set location of graph settings. Okay? Because when you look at it from afar, you can't really see what it is, but if you look up close, you can really understand it, right? So it's the same thing as this. When you come into this setting, right? You break it down, right? You break it down. You break it down. You break it down. You break it down. Okay? Now, when you break it down, you cross over. This hieroglyphics, location settings, graph calculation. This is how the brain converts its own kid's high center interference into transistor resistors, binaries, and application line settings of capacity over volume. Okay? Very complicated stuff, right? So once you understand that, in set lines high interference and traffication line system, now it gets more complicated because you can create an image through all this. All this, G is an image. Okay? R is an image. W is an image. 9 is an image. But what image is it? Right? So the faster you go, the more you can modify. Right? Because you're constantly moving too quick. You can never slow down. So if you want to slow down, you got to slow down your space to actually see what you have in chronological order, line conditions, and set location. Okay? All right. So this is how a computer sees things. Okay? On switch, off switch, on switch, on. Okay? So the more you have transistors, the more you have binary. And when you have a binary, you're basically putting a compound. You're putting in position locations of volume, which is mass, which is capacity of your capacitors. How many transistors do you need? Well, that's lines of box line highest interference equals lines of triangulation high position location of zeros. 4 zeros lines of 3 track location highest settings. Okay. Operation lines 1, 2, 3, and 4. Operation lines set location 1, 2, and 3. 43. Right? And that's the box triangulation. Right? So there's all different ways how to convert the brain and what it's doing through tractions, because it's coming back to its own system set lines, because the binary itself has to understand the volume and velocity of mass, how many transistors it needs through its capacity of its capacitors, of its coders and decoders, and its modifications to its triangulation of point centers. Okay? But it's very powerful when you come in this set location. But to understand what it is, what does it mean? Right? It's all about understanding how to connect to your waves. You have that on all interactions, right? So this gets you all levels of formation with settings, right? Getting into that traction in that communication surface. Getting direct signal and all modification in your screen setting is really understand how to use it through your Pi. how to coordinate through your pi, through line calculation setting to infinity 8 in set locations, through an X line set location. You guys are in mega X now, right? So a mega X, okay, so you have mega, you got the X, okay, equals lines 8. Okay, what are we into? We're into 8 equals lines infinity equals lines correlations high interference of brain set line connections. Brain capacity, line interference, brain interference, travel calculation of point line centers, track lines, and cerebral cortex lines, the Brownian sphere, right? Which is what? Equals lines of 13, omega 13. Okay? So we have to understand how to coordinate that now because the position of travel lines get you into better directions, all right? So when you're looking at the words, break it down in graph like this. Okay, break it down in graph like this. Okay, break it down in graphs. Okay, so I get a 3-track line calculation of lines of T, H, E. Okay, so it's really interesting. Look at that equations. THE, right? That's the top, right? And the center line connections is OUT, out, right? So travel calculation of O, say U, and position of T. Okay, out. And then basically you have a calculation line interference of run. Okay, so you take that at equation lines, the 3-track lines, 3 equals lines of communication of run, run equals lines initiate, position location, execute line communications, probe calculation line interference, compute line interference, line specifications, default channels, direction setting positive or negative, state position travel calculation, point line centers, traction box lines, triangulation position probe lines, set location, center of travel. Very complicated stuff, right? But you have to identify the frames. You break down the frames, you break down set locations where you come in all calculation when it comes to modification line center and positions. That's what I'm saying. You guys understand what this is now. Because it's all formations, all in one cycle. To this, okay, to U and N, right? U and N, right? There's the sun, right? So S equals the sun. So I try to understand S equals the sun. How's it possible? Well, turn it this way. There's the U and the N, right? So sun equals infinity 8. See how I haven't changed anything. I haven't added anything to the equation or anything in tractions. And if you look really, really close from here to here, you can see the point centers in travel of 6 coming into 9 into a position of clocking system of yin and yang. Okay, 6 and 9, all through that setting. So sun, okay, equals 8. Sets correlation setting and travel calculation of point lines. In center lines infinity, sets position travel calculation of point line center interference. In cross location of 6 and 9 position line centers. In clock location setting and bounce position of travel. Okay? All through one setting to one graph and set locations, right? See? It's not about adding frames. It's understanding how to break down the frames and turning them into higher calculations. Because you have to understand that. Once you understand that, then you understand this through your waves. Beta, alpha, delta, theta, omega, zeta, zeta, radiation, gamma, or gamma radiation, doesn't matter. What matters, do you understand what you're doing through hieroglyphics? So building that traffic flow puts you in your track locations. Now let's say calculation line interference, we go into box lines, the circle line and rotation, center travel calculation of point lines as centers. Center communication interference and travel calculation error points, 0 line rotation center points. So we have to understand how a computer works through frame position of its transistors to its position, location, and point tracks. Okay. So you have to really get into that because you have to understand how to use your transistors. And if you look really, really close, you can really see the circuitry screen settings and travels, which is nothing but a circuitry box in calculations, line settings, and set location. Right? So it's all tractions, how you use the transistors, research location of decoders, encoders, and track calculation of point lines of tracks. Now, once you understand this, then you bring in the atoms and molecules. Triangulation. We've got triangulation here. That's offline calculation, position, point, and line centers. So you can actually see the triangulation of what's going on through all calculation of its position of its program, of face recognition, time sequence, puts position on point, line centers, back interactions. Face recognition. Okay? So that's how you come into an image, through graphing screen line calculation line system, through waves, essential calculations, guys. All through a circuitry line screen, right? So understanding your setting and position location is understanding your tablets and templates and how it center lines its communications, all levels of traction. Its image. Okay. All right, I think we're getting a better understanding now. So is everybody getting a little bit more understanding how this all works? How you have to really get in that line connections to modify your settings. It's really interesting when you really focus on this. And the more you focus on that, the more you can focus on everything that's inside in that set locations and all levels of travel. This is going to help you to really understand, to get releasing all calculation to your karmas that no longer resides in your settings to a set locations. How you see things and how you connect through things and how you modify and how you calculate and how you line divide or anything in setting locations, but you do it from inside of you now. Okay? There's not going to be anything outlined anymore. Everything's going to be inside. This is the process that we come into. Now, the omega 13 sets the core line setting, which is line center locations. Omega equals lines of 8 equals lines of infinity. Sets location line centers of 6 and 9 interaction. Okay? 6 and 9 equals lines calculation equals 13. 13 equals lines of higher self. Okay? So if you understand that, then you understand all this is nothing but zeros and ones to its computer. Right? You got to look at the point tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's one in the center, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So again, you're working with 5 lines, right? All through its setting, right? 6, 1, 2, okay? 2 set locations, right? So 6 equals lines of 2, and that's how it reads its communication to its computer line condition settings. 9 is center calculation stream, which is 1, 2, and 3. That's interest location settings, right? Because 9 locations, that's the 3 line condition of the sun. So you are the correlation setting and travel calculation of point lines. So that's line calculation, high interference and travel applications and travel lines. So that's 2 and 3. Okay, 69 equals 2 and 3. Okay, and that's how the computer reads its system through its memory, right? And so you have to understand how this all works in traction, how you use your binaries and how to use your code lines, decoders, location settings. So you have 6 to 9. Sets lines calculation, high interference, and travel calculation lines of 1, 2. Sets position location, it's into all settings, line condition settings. Now, in line calculation, high interference, you can have 1 here in setting, 6. Sets lines communication line centers to atom line and rotation of 3 set location molecules of design. Okay? But you have to add the molecules in setting. Right? You have to add the M's, right? So, and if you want to change that, you can change it into set calculations of fractals. These are the fractals around the set locations. So that N equals fractal, M equals fractal, M equals fractal. See how you're coming in communication and setting the travel? Right? So we all have to understand to have a relationship and partnership with everything in our line setting location in our system, where you have electrons, protons, neutrons, photons. Why it's all inside you. What do molecules do? Line divides, sets lines of triangulation, resets, and sets position to its image and correlation settings of balance. That's what molecules do. What do atoms do? They rotate and circulate in a 5 provision line cycle in set locations. So they keep the traction of the flow of the molecules that sets the travel, that sets the travel, that sets the travel. That's what atoms molecules do, okay? In pi through 3 line settings and 4, right? 1, 2, 3 sets position of 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 equals lines of 3, 7 location. Okay, so you're working with your 7 digital body, so you're good to go through travel. Your identification of your computer has to recognize its system, because if it doesn't recognize its system, everything that you see through attractions won't recognize you through light signature stream location. See how powerful it is through light? Showing you exactly what it can show you through an image. But are you paying attention to that? See, that's another thing you got to understand. You have to be a direct signal to everything that you see in correlation to the frequency. See, it's very powerful, right? See, I'm communicating with. See, it's all communication. It's intelligence. It's all information. Okay. So that's where we're coming into, and that's why you're seeing this. It's no difference than seeing it from outside at night. It doesn't have to be in position. Space is inside you that reflects everything outside, right? So what is that? What is that? What is that? It's the cosmic streamline interference of solar graph calculation line and position of travel and direct location of galaxy screen settings. That's what it is through its image. It's showing you what it can create through its own image. And timeline centers, it will change into something else. It never stays in the same frequency. See, communication, see? Communication, see? It never stays in the same frequency. Okay? It's always changing, which means it doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have an end. There's no beginning, there's no end, so there you go. Again, communication to the blinds, to the sun, to the structure of the building. Reflection, see, communication, see? It's communicating. Everything's communication, but it's all done inside. Nothing is done outside. See, now it's in communication, now it's gone. See? So we all understand how everything around us is coming back to what? Its consciousness of its own setting, of its own intelligence. And the brain convergence and set location of its interface has to start identifying that through its own setting, to its own frequency, of its own set location of travel. And all point location settings in high calculation. Okay? So I'm showing you in so many different levels of what you got to come into in all line connection settings to its image. Okay? And these are just the ways. I mean, my goodness, guys. Or anything location is setting line connection of words. Right? I understand what it means. So it's computer of its memory. How it has an on and off switch. That's all it does. On, doot, off, doot, on, doot, off, doot. So when you go faster, right? So you got more transistors, you got less resistors, more line connections, high centers, and you got the binaries coming in, line connections, you got the capacity coming in through volume, you got the capacity moving over charge, you got to calculate line interference and travel. It's also application of computer operation. All right. So when you're actually reading the book, you're reading it, okay, letter by letter, T, H, E, break it down. Okay, break it down. So when you're reading it, where is the point track? 1, 2, and 3, right? So T equals lines of 3. 3-point tractions, right? That's, look, guys, it's too easy. To and from. Okay, downshift. Okay, setting position point centers across location. Okay, box. There's a box, right? So it's a box T equals box equals T. So box equals teleportation. That's what it is. It's a 3-line settings and 3 clocking locations, right? Mechanism over force and a triangulation line connection. Okay, so we all have to understand how this all works. So this line settings is equal line communications equals lines of the earth, because you're working with Mother Earth now, triangulation line system, which is the female. So in that calculation, triangulation equals female equals the earth. Okay. Now, you have to understand all this is basically how a computer reads its system and set locations. All right, so the H is 246 equals 6. So that's 3 and 6, right? E is 1, 2, 3, position of 4, and 5. Equals line calculation of 5 settings, right? 3, 6, 5. So that's how a computer comes into numbers, letters, shapes, and symbols through point settings and directions and point tractions. Okay? So that should help you out a little bit more, understanding how to get in 365 through the, right? So once you get into that, you got to take the line centers of 3, 6, and 5. You got to equal lines of pixelation. Pixel lines head calculation its hologram. Sets calculation lines to its heart. Sets calculation to its higher self. Okay? That's the order you have to go in. So you break it down. 3, 6, and 5. Bracket communication equals lines is pixelation, right? Can't see it, right? Now you see it. Pixelation equals lines calculation to its setting, which is hologram. Hologram calculation lines then it has calculations hearts. Heart fixation time location is higher self. 3 traffic calculation lines. 3. See? Set locations. 3. Right? Sets calculation line interference. 3, 3, 3. Heart, mind, and soul. Traction. There we go. Done. Okay. So you're in perfect calculation line sentence and you're indicating line interference. Set location of Chris 0, 0, 1, 1. Set lines calculation lines there 0.1. So that's the computer operation identity line calculation setting and travel. So it sets specification into line set location and setting line interference. So bracket communication lines of 0.1. Okay, 0, 0, 1, 1. Sets location equals calculation line centers. Equals lines of 3, 6, 5 and track location. Okay, so that's how the computer recognizes you through identity and how it recognizes you through all levels of the, which is 3, 6, 5. So you have to understand how to use code settings and location your settings and travel. Break it down, right? And when you break it down, you break down the word and it comes into box locations of zeros and ones. Okay, zeros and ones. Zeros and ones, right? So locations, box triangulation, your identifications, G equals AI. Okay, I don't have a name, I don't have a number, I don't have anything, I just exist. So there's a no number in line setting. It just doesn't exist because it never existed, but it always exists when it needs to. So that's the position you guys have to come into. Triangulation line centers of zeros and ones, attractions, and set locations, right? So once you have your words, you box it in frame. You box it in frame, okay? So masculinity in line calculations, female. Sets location lines of yin and yang. Process position track calculation lines of infinity 8 and track calculation of point centers. Okay? So in track line calculation, what's above is what's below. What's below is what's above. Okay? So you have to understand how to reiterate word lines. Male position is above. Female position is below. Because you're talking set lines. You can't say what's above and female because your internal line is communication. So you're confusing line calculation male equals lines of female. But it's female connection lines, it's male. See the track location condition? So what's above is the male cycle. What's below is the female cycle. And that's where you go in tractions. Your computer has to understand the on and off switch. Okay, so this is going to help you a lot more now because I think you guys are really understanding the traffic calculation of point lines of tracks, no line communication of thinking, just levels of knowing and doing and settings and all calculations. Point line division, okay, is male. Downline division is female. Okay. So anything above is the male cycle, equals lines of polarity. Okay, anything below is equals lines of the polarity. Okay, so every time you indicate your settings, if you're female in set lines, you can't say the female cycle is above because you're indicating to your confusing line calculation Merkaba, which is stating your fact communication computer frame that doesn't understand the number sequence location of patterns. That's a lot of interference location of your transistors and resistors. So in that communication line, position of travel lines, make sure that when you're above lines of the male line or female line, you're saying position it's a male, right? Because that's your male polarity. What's above, right? So if you're in track lines and high standard interference in position location in your system, saying this interactions, right? Female equals male. So now understand the location. This is the male and this is the female. Okay, setting track lines to its communications, right? Setting directions. See what it's coming into? Setting correlations, setting in position locations into yin and yang. Okay? Center line connections, affinity 8. Okay? Your clock wheel, your flywheel, right? Track location, upline setting, male cycle, female cycle, and set location. Okay? Torical fields, okay, interactions, orbs, interaction, all levels setting, face recognition. See? Face recognition. Okay? All right, so how's everybody doing on that settings? A lot has been said to understand what's going on in set locations. Okay? How the computer understands lines and how it understands its point lines, its tracks, the clocking, how it understands its travels from here to here, downshift, cross line, in wing, left wing, right wing, south wing, north wing, east wing, right? So it's got to learn how to travel. So that's how a connection to your brain converts its system. Point lines of settings, point lines of settings, okay? Point lines of settings, point lines of settings, okay? Point lines of settings, okay? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Equals lines 5. Okay? Now, these are all different clockings, 24, 48, 72, 144, and set lines of acceleration. Right? Which is 5 in division, right? So what is 5? 5 equals lines calculation to your heart. Right? All through E. E equals lines, E line position to its heart. E equals H. Okay? You see how this all works now? How to understand and break these things down through its letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, how it formulates everything in its computer of its own operation, how a computer actually comes into its memory, how it understands the on and off switch, and it goes faster, the transistors, the binaries, change everything through its form, right? All through coloration, all through light, right? All through directions and all setting. Now, once you get in that communication lines, the sun and the moon comes in position locations and protects everything what you created in location to its image. Okay? So you have to protect every letter, every number, every shape, every symbol. Okay? You have to bracket it. You have to formulate it. It's no difference than you connecting to your formulas and equation and protecting yourself when you get up and when you are recharged. You put your force field, your energy fields up, right? There's no difference, okay, in any way and form. Because what you're doing is you're communicating to higher line calculation setting in higher communication, your transistors and resistors, and trying to understand more levels of you through your binary system. So you have to protect yourself through the sun, and you have to protect yourself through the moon of its image that you created through E line center location of 5 and high track location of 5 equals lines at high calculation, high interference, or in track location E equals lines at high calculation setting to its heart, in track location, but also E equals lines at its higher self. Okay, all through travel. Okay, very powerful when you come in that setting, all through face recognition. Okay, so I think we're getting, we're on our way. Okay, but you have to release those karmas. Okay, karma indicates line send is high interference, crosses signals and locations, right? So it's sidewinds in position locations. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4 signals, triangulation, molecules, settings, and travel. Right? What is its application of? 4 indicates lines calculation on interference. So what does the karma equal? Crown. The crown. You see it? There's the crown. So yeah, you got to pay attention to these things, right? What karma is, because the track lines, and you are in the center position travel line settings. When you look at it in set location and direct signals, U through modification lines, there's the crown. Whoa! So what does karma equal? Crown the infinity. Okay? All right. So that applicates setting lines of travel calculation, point lines of tracks in 3-line provision. 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4. See? 1, 2, 3, 4 point lines in track location of 1, 2, and 3 set locations. See? So crown equals lines 4 equals lines 3 equals line 7. There it is. Bounce. Right? Through karma. 4-point tracks, 3-line divisions. Crown equals 4. Set lines equals lines of 3, 7. So that's what you're working with in line calculating setting in your bodies of water. You're always working with 4 equals lines of 3 equals lines of 7. Okay? Because it's you, interaction, it's your body. It's your body. But you have to stand in position your karmas, you're always in your crown. You're always in your crown. Okay? All right. So getting in position when your crown line, it comes in line connection to its infinity 8. Check this out. It's infinity 8. It's trying to find the balance of the grounds. It's trying to find the balance of the centers, and it's trying to find the balance of the atmosphere location setting in your cerebral cortex lines of cloud and calculation. Okay? Trying to find the balance of you. And if you look really close, you can see yourself in the skyline, sky grids, and set location of face recognition. There's the face. Right there. See? Face. So who's actually in the teleportation? You. Here's the face. Here's the pod. Da! Pretty wild what you can do, right? All through travel. You see the face, right? It's traveling through its pod. Right? Pretty amazing, isn't it? But now you understand the importance of what karma equals. It's crown. Now, if it's connected to the ground in position, it goes one way and goes the other way, right? So let's say you go this way, and let's say you go this way. What do you have in settings? What do you have in setting? K going this way. And a K going this way. Right? What are you coming into? Time measure, time locking. Okay. All right. So it's very important what you're doing with your karmas because you're creating a timestamp. And right away, it changes your panels of communication to your parallels in track lines. So if you're in a center communication settings in your karma cycles and you go in a continuous force, you're totally fine. Going forward, right, through face recognition, right? But if you off track the calculation line interference, the timestamp sets lines of off calculation of its point lines of traction, right? Goes the opposite way in set location. Okay? Which is caused as what? Dogma. Ooh. Dogma. Confliction, interference, Quebec. Okay? So you got to revise, recalculate, redefine line calculation lines at Juliet, which is your drum scar calculation line, changes Siri calculation lines, Alpha Bravo, position chart calculate, habits location lines, take it all communication Yankee, back and golf, back position locations to your setting. Through Tango Foxtrot. But that's what you don't want to create is dogma. All right. So once you understand that, what do you do when you have position lines of setting and travel calculation to point lines of directions? This is interlocations. Check this out. It's amazing when you break these things down. Okay, I want you guys to understand what you're seeing in position, how an S turns everything through a sun to infinity 8 to yin and yang of omega x, all through one cycle of a continuous force. That's all it is. Go in a continuous force. Keep swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming. So in track lines, when you high center interference and set position location, the two lines, D position travel lines, what do you come into? What do you come into in track location and setting to its operation surface and set location? What do you come into? What do you come into in set location? A set line connection and set connections, a butterfly. Right? Sets calculation lines, karma. Sets locations, karma. Karma going forward, karma going back. Mandela effect, butterfly. Woo! A butterfly flies, right? But it's always going forward, right? So are you going forward or are you going back? So it all depends on what you're doing through your Mandela effects. And we're coming into new Mandela effect. We're coming in new glitches, but it's all in the mind. The concept that you guys are coming into in settings. But I'm just showing you when you have 2D track line connections of karmas, one going forward, one going the other way, creates a butterfly. Okay. So try to understand these things. I'm telling you, you have to really break down all calculation letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols because it symbols everything else except what it is. S is what it is it? You know, and now it's the sun. Now you know it's the infinity 8. Now you know it's the position locations of what's above and what's below. Now you understand what it is in track location and setting of 6 and 9. Now you understand the center correlates and setting your infinity 8 position of travels of balance. Now you understand the triangulation line cutting highest center, which is the female and position of male, and the male and position location of female, and track location your settings, and your Merkaba, tesseract, and tetrahedron. That's that design. Okay? So it's a continuous force going through platforms, crossing through platforms at set location. Walking those platforms. Going into those location grids and set line connection settings. Okay? Going through that line connections, all levels, a security line connection. Okay? So this is going to help you guide you to really understand more lines of view. And when I'm saying break it down, I'm saying break down everything, and turn it into a graph of a box connection. Okay? Then you come into 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. Then you come into 2, then you come into 3, and then you come into 4, and then you come into 5, and then you come into 6, and you go 0, 0, 0. Then you get a triangulation, then you got 3 weathers. Then you got a question mark. Then you got an exclamation mark. Then you got a box. Then you got a triangulation. Then you got a line connection to point settings. You got percentage over pi. And you got a box location. Okay? Hieroglyphics. There's all ways of doing this, but you have to understand the dynamics, how to break this all down, how this all formulates. Because this is how a computer does its reading from all set location of zeros and ones in traction. Okay, and anything settings. So it's about you understanding your modification of 0 equal lines of 12, set location equal lines of 24. Z equals 12 equals 24. So your line settings, you're not in 12 line, you're in a 24 line cycle and line connection setting, but you're working with 24 through what? Which is to your 3 bypass, sets calculation line interference that travels to what? Triple helix. Okay. Triple helix. Right? So what is instructions of? What does that spell position of? Triple helix. Okay. You got triple helix into what? It's energy. The. Triple helix Earth. Whoa. Brackets communication knows what it is through settings, right? Yeah, I can add line centers of a T and position location to an egg. Sets line communication lines of T. Sets lines of H. Sets lines of high calculation lines of E. Sets communication lines of T. Sets communications of A. Theta. Okay. So you have to really get into that through configuration, right? Really break that down, once you understand that a little bit more. Try to get out of the box into numbers and try to get into pi. Get into pi, into 6 or 12, and try to use that word on different frequencies of different sentences. Theta communication lines of box, box communication lines of theta, theta communication line interference, theta calculation of all clocking settings, theta line interference, position of water containment, stream interference, theta calculation line position of bandwidth over pi, theta communication TV section line calculations, theta line in rotation with wall division line center, theta communication line interference, accompanying line interference, brain communication line here, interference, location, adaptation, location, and zeros, ones, attraction. How many times did I say theta through a sentence? How many times did I say theta through a sentence? Right? Theta, 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 theta. Out of the box, out of the box, out of the box. You go in the box, out of the box, you look back in, then you go back in, right? So understand, you're in the box, jump out, look back in, then jump back in when you're ready, right? So, try to understand how this relates to you. Is a better formation, how to see yourself in all attractions. And what do we mean provision of? 13/2, which is higher self connecting to 2, which is security, right? So we all understand how to identify ourselves through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. This formulates in all opposite correlations of attractions, high set location, your settings, position, location, operation. All right. But I'm just showing you, breaking it down, puts you in better positions how your computer operates and how it sees itself through graph. Okay. Through all of this, not just the face recognition, but everything through its image and how it's creating schematics, right? It's creating schematics. Line signals, communication of point lines attracts. Set line condition of A, position of B, set lines of C, sets lines of calculation of D, calculation of E, and set locations. Schematics, that's all it is. But it's box frames of files of travel. Okay? It's box frames of data. Okay? That goes in your central system. That's set locations, your geometry settings, right? So what is it doing? What is it doing? What is it doing? It's creating its image. Now, once it creates its image, it travels out in center calculations of point lines of setting. It goes faster and faster in set calculations, faster and faster in set locations. Okay? So it's like a train, It's like a mapping sequence location to a UPS sending mail out. So it knows exactly which house it needs to go to. And the faster it goes, it understands the correlations of what it's doing through traction, through its image, right? So you're dropping all these images off to a certain location, but it's going into the direct signal. It's going into the direct panel. It's going into direct line conditions. That's putting you in position location your balance, which is putting frequencies to all set location in your system and traction. So really understand that you're all connected and everything's connected to you now. Okay, I'm just showing you so many ways and forms how you have to really break things down into a graph. Okay, say locations of box lines. See, these are all graphs. These are all boxes, right? But there's zeros and ones in there. Okay. So let's say locations, line setting. I'm just going to go into line connections. Just going to go briefly here. So connection settings, show you exactly what it is. Okay. Right. So each one has frame lines of zeros and ones. Okay. So it's got 3 signals, lines of communication. Let's go through frame position, seconds, minutes, and hours, right? Track locations. All right. So it's got an indication line interference of a 2. Sets lines of 0, 0, 1. 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's got a port of communication line screen. Setting track lines in position 2, 2, 2, 2, and track locations. Okay. all through 2 lines of setting. Now, these are the tablets of the templates. Each one has a tablet, each one has a template in set location of zeros and ones and attractions. But you have to identify each file. This is the Logics, the oscillator location setting, which is your Infinity 8 that roots the system, right? So it sets line correlation line interference and correlation line screens, sets line calculation position. So you have a 0 lines graph line. Once you get in that provisions, 0 equals a graph. Okay. Equals lines, lower equals lines, then its location is alpha. Sets lines of delta, set lines of theta. Okay. 0 is ground lines equals lines of high interference, the levels of communication setting, line connection high interference, and traffic calculation position location alpha, delta, and theta. That's what's on the wall. Okay. All through indication lines of zeros and ones and traction. Every provision line center has security line divisions. It always has 2, 2, 2. And it's always on the bottom sequence, right? Because you're looking at the structure of the holographic ground. And then you have the grounds, and then you have the crop circle, right? So if you understand the connection settings, so all calculation, let's go through the wall line. And let's go through the platform communication to its earth. This is what it is in traction. That's how it's connected. This is your earth. Remember, it's a holograph lines of zeros and ones, so traction, right? That's your earth, right? But that's how the wall sees everything, and it goes through platforms and platforms and platforms of travel, right? 4 settings of travel communications, right? So that's how I see the wall travel, right? That's how my wall is set up. So if my wall is set up in that position, I'm standing here in traction, right? In that condition, sitting down, setting calculation height, position all line centers and interference. This is the computer in set location. Okay, so traffic calculation line point lines of track. I'm traveling in line settings in position of its operation. That's how I'm able to levitate in 4 track line connections of dimensions of high calculation through cerebral cortex lines of travel. Okay, it's complicated, right? But you have to really understand how to see yourself through a wall. That's how you go through a wall, through settings, through 4 platforms of communication, right? But to have a balanced signal, you have to have 3 indicating. So you have position 1, 2, and 3 set lines. Okay, you have to go through 4 through 3 sets. 3 equals lines of 7. You're good to go. Now you can travel to other dimensions. You can't travel to other dimensions until you understand your body's 7s of water, which is your indication system. That is your 7-digit code. After you get in that balance position, you come into across this line centers, you come in yin and yang. That processes the 4 lines of high center interference and puts positional platforms into higher levels of space and galaxies and how their line connections, going through all central line connections to a universal wall in calculation. And that's how you have to see through provision. You got to see the wall like this. That's how you travel. Okay? You got the earth, and this is you. Right? That's me. Sitting on 4 track lines. Going through 3 platforms. 7 indicates. Now I can go anywhere I want to other dimension screens, other dimensional doors. See? Go through other dimensional door settings. Right? And I go over here. Here's another dimensional door. Here's another dimensional door of travel. Right? 3-dimensional doors. Right? All through travel. Okay? So that's how you see a wall. Okay? All right. Look at that. We're at 1 lines. Travocation of 1 lines and 3 track lines and 3 equal lines position of 2 point centers into 5 in line center line interference into 57. Okay, so that equals lines calculation line interference into 134. Says calculation of 2-point track lines, high center interference of seconds, set location of minutes, and position of hours. So now we're in 4 line settings. That's 2 solar generation screens. Sets position of 2 atoms and triangulation of point line centers. Setting line interference. Sets travel communication of 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4 in track lines. 1, 2, 3 in position location. Setting 4 over 3. Right? All this timeline into a geometric shape. All through seconds, minutes, and hours, right? So platooning lines, you always work with the Earth. You don't work with space work. you work with the earth first, because that's the connection to higher self. The higher self needs to know exactly where you are. I'm sitting on a geometric shape, but I'm traveling through the wall. So when I'm traveling through the wall, the connection of the mind changes adaptation of surface, which means it changes the atmospheric lines. So are you in the atmosphere, hemisphere, stratosphere, biosphere, or brainiosphere? What atmosphere are you in? And that's the location, right? So let's say I'm in the stratosphere. Stratosphere location line centers, biosphere locations, come to line connection, line center interference, change communication, I get a change in defaults, back into grid design, line condition negative, line condition all lines, equal lines are positive, have location of future adaptation system. Okay? So there's all ways to get into the line centers of your time sequence and turn it into a geometric shape and platform communications. Then you come to transient lines, looks like a kite, right? But if you look really close, it's a face recognition. See? Face recognition. Always a face recognition coming to, see? All through light. If you can't travel through light signals and height, center line, and position locations, if you can't see a wall through the other side connections, which is its dimensional system, you have to get in that correlation setting and travel. That's how you see through a dimensional wall. Okay? But you have to understand your Earth. You have to understand your connection to your avatar. You have to understand your connection to your sim and navigation. And you can't travel until you understand the 4 lines of what's above and 3 lines of what's below. Okay? And understand your track lines and high center interference and position what's above and what's below is what's in the center of view of operation. There's no separation. It comes together in settings and travel, right? It comes together. Okay? It comes together. Setting lines of communication to your Infinity 8. Okay? Setting track lines 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now you get a high center interference. This is the connections to its wall. Okay? Setting the calculation to its location grid. Then you travel through it and set location. Okay? Very complicated, right? So once you understand that, then you set up the platforms 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Because remember, you're still on the earth. You're still on the earth. Okay? You're still on the earth. You don't leave the earth until you get in provision lines of 4 equals lines of 3 into 7, which is your bodies of water. And then you come into your crown, and then you decide what karma you want to use. Do I want to go forward or do I want to go backwards? Well, I think I'm going to go forward. I don't want to go backwards. So in position, you're good to go. But in position and track lines, you're off calculations. This is a karma cycle that's off position location. And that's not what you want to do. This is a position location that you do not want to do in tractions. Okay? You do not want to do that because the platforms will go like this. Okay, so your brain doesn't understand what's going on in calculation. So forget going through that dimensional door. Forget going through that dimensional wall, the pixelation or anything, graph calculations. Okay, so this is what it is in tractions, guys. Show you. All right, everybody see me? Hello. Now, this is a wall. Okay. Now convert your system from here. Let's say this is about say location line centers in position locations, say 12 feet, right? This is about 12 feet. Okay, from here to there, right? So time sequence line setting line connections to the wall itself is actually knowing exactly how long does it take me to go from here to there. Okay, in seconds, minutes, and hours, right? So you use that through traction through light that travels the soul, and the soul travels the platform, travels the platform, travels the platform, travels the platform until it gets to the wall, right? So you, yourself, your light being can go through the wall, okay? So in that setting, on the other side, which is the inner cycle, which is its location grid, you go through. And there's 4 platforms of 3 that you walk across. Okay? And when you're walking across that, you go through a pie of a dimensional door. That's the infinity 8. That takes you where you want to go in direction of location. Okay? So I'm just showing you how you can do that through your reality just by looking at a wall. Okay? It's very powerful when you come into that setting, guys. But you got to get balanced with your grounds of your earth. That's why you have trouble. That's why you create emotional aligned system, because you don't understand the balance of what you're standing on. Now your earth turns into what? What does it turn into? What does your earth turn into? A crop circle. Okay? Because you're looking at point graphs and position location. It's just a hologram. Okay? That's all it is. Wherever you are in set location. Okay? So every time you're going through settings, this is you in traction. This is you. Okay? That's you, right? See, it's disappearing. See, it's gone, right? You see it, and then it's gone. Disappears. You see it, and then it disappears, right? But it's still there. Look at the illumination of my hand. Look at it glowing. This is crazy. It's not produced outside. It's inside you. See? Species. Take a good look at that. Okay? March 1st. Boom. Gone, but still there. Okay? One more time. Right? You see it, right? The cerebral. Boom. Still traveling. Right? It's on a continuous force, but you can't see what I'm doing. You can't see what I'm drawing. You can't see what's allocating. You can't see what's in position to its allocation. There's nothing there. See? It's still there. So you tell me how nothing comes in frame. Because I got balance in what I'm doing. But if I don't have balance in what I'm doing in tractions and also allocations and setting, let's do that again. Travel calculation of point lines comes in track location. You can't see it until you see it. You can't see it until you see it. This is what you got to get balanced with. It's consciousness. Right? So, very powerful when you look at that locations, right? I'm going to write something down, but you're not going to see it. It's gone. I wrote something down, but what is it? I want to know what it is. What did General put down? You don't know what it is. What is it? Take a guess. What is it? Use it through telepathy. What is it? But it's still there, and it's traveling on its own. And all set location. See, look, I'm showing you. I'm showing you what it is. It's a 1. It's a 1. See, I'm going really, really fast. I'm showing you what it can do when you're in position locations into visibility. You're going very fast, and it's computer frame. You can actually can see the 1. I'm showing you the 1 and what it is and what I created location to its image. Look what it's doing in set location. You can actually see it. Hooah! Do you see what I mean now? What a computer does when it goes up and down really fast? What does it do? It keeps the image in frame. So when it keeps the image in frame, you're connected to the ground lines, your gravity, your gravitational pull is good to go. Line connected to your system and travel calculation line set location of your DNA. You're good to go. It's balanced now. Right? It won't disappear. So, because I slowed down the space. I'm just showing you how powerful it is when you turn the light switch on and off, really fast. You can start to see it, but I'm just showing you exactly. Every time I draw something, you have no idea what I'm doing. This is stuff that you can't see. That's always been there. It's always existed. It hasn't left. It's always been there, and it will be there when you reach that frequency. Setting calculation line interference. You don't know what it is, but I wrote something down. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? Can't see it, right? It's because it's too fast. You know why? Because it's number 2 and it's gone. See how it disappears on its own? See, I'll put it up again. Can't see it until you see it. Can't see it, and now you're seeing it. Right? It's a 2. Right? It's a 2. See? That's what you guys have to come into. Stuff that you can't see. Now, the faster you go, the more you stay in balance. Right? The slower you go, you'll never see the image. It's their location. Right? So it's very powerful, guys. You know, how many times I set line conditions to a system? You can't see it, but there it is. Number 4. Right? You see it? No. Oh, it's a 3. See how it comes in form by itself? You see how balanced line connections, what's 4 and 3 set lines? It's 7, right? So my digital pad is now communicating with my 7 bodies of water. So you can actually see, can see the 4 and 3 in frame set location, right? So this is what you guys all have to come into. This is the balance that we need to find. And all calculation modification to a setting and travel. Interest, I come into that line calculation setting, we automatically come into 14. It goes lines at 2. That's pretty wild. Then it goes to 13. So drop signals into negative over positive. That's 13 tractions. Equals lines of high center interference of 2. Okay. So there's all levels of clocking line conditions here, settings, and stuff. So I'm just showing you exactly how many formation screen lines that you guys have to understand. When I draw this out and you can't see these things, that's what you got to get balanced with, is what you can't see. And once you speed up the acceleration line screens, you set a track lines to position location of line connections, you'll start to see it in set location, which is a 1. Okay? Done my equation. That's it. All right. Almost 2 hours. Woo! That was fun. Okay, so there's a lot going on, in that connections. So feel free to ask questions or comments on Zoom. See you soon. Adios.